again, 12/6/2023, the eve of the anniversary of D-Day, aka Operation AI, which may have some significance for whatever is planned for tomorrow's major psyop if there is one. And there are a lot of rumors. We had the recent attack in DC, which really followed on the heels of the attack on Derek Chauvin. And we've found these interesting connections between all of the above. If you just got here, I sent out text message notifications. I realized the last stream got cut off. The gremlins had infested the 5G tower, cut the wires with their teeth, but we got it fixed. So what I'm doing now is sending out text alerts to hopefully bring in an influx of individuals who aren't on the email notification. We are still experiencing a little bit of glitchiness, but I'm sure it'll pass. Other topics tonight: D-Day, Operation AI, those are a couple of things. Today is 666 days from the Vegas shooting, the Harvest Festival. And today in Vegas, they had another shooting, which we'll have more details about here shortly. We've also been talking about what I'm calling the desert of the designated real. Welcome to the desert of the designated real, where it's only real if they say it is, and oftentimes they contradict themselves. And as a rule of thumb, we're going to go with Pope Elon's "it must be real if it looks so fake." Because as you're seeing here, you're having fights. Jerusalem Post had to apologize for publishing an article which claimed that a man was parading around a doll, pretending it was a dead baby, which a lot of people figured out anyway on their own. Well, later they followed this up with a debunk of their original debunk. So then they said, no, actually this one is real. Well, it doesn't look any realer. They didn't provide any more evidence or context or any more facts. They just said it's real, and it got the stamp of real. All right, Clockwork 113, text confirmed, so the signal went out. Phones are open, 505-349-0420, and the number is on the screen. And if you're listening on any of the platforms and you want to get in chat, just go to ips.monster and you can join in the Discord server, where you can also post links and also click the links that we post. If you want to follow along with any of the notes here, just go to minds.com/infiniteplanesociety. Here on Twitter, Synchromorpheus had asked, serious question, does the baby look real or fake to you? I see no actual evidence in the debunk that it's real. Only these two screenshots stating it's real with no further explanation. Is that really enough for you to disregard your own judgment and senses? Apparently it is for some people. They say it's real, it's real. What do you call this? You call this what I describe here. This is Big Brother's 2 + 2 = 5. This is the definition of gaslighting, where no matter what you perceive as an individual, you got to go with what the screen says. It's the ultimate authority, and it trumps your own perceptions, and your own questions and doubts are indicative of really bad character on your part. You shouldn't have doubts. You should have total faith in media. Al Jazeera posts blurred doll, claims it to be a dead Palestinian baby. So here's accurate reporting with, again, the Palestinian Gene Rosen tier list crisis actors. Baby made of plastic or something. And there's a number of people lining up just to kiss the thing. It's totally grotesque. You know, these are psyops tailor-made for this geographical area and their conflicts. Like here in America, we got the bowl cut shooters, the AR-15s, and over here it's bombs and dead babies for sympathy, and it works. I mean, this works. Something to consider is just that psyops are effective on 99.9% of the population, and the population is trained to view those who aren't triggered by these things as morally deficient, evil, or motivated by politics or something like that. Now, this is making the rounds. I'll just play the clip if you haven't heard it yet. Donald Trump said he's going to be a dictator when he gets back into office. Yeah, doll lives matter, by the way. Dolls' lives matter. Fake dead kids' lives don't matter, but dolls' lives do matter. Okay, listen to this. This is Trump, who says that starting from day one, he's going to be a dictator. Well, he only meant for one day, but this has the left in a tizzy, and it has the bloodthirsty QAnoners uh, getting their ammo ready because they want their war with the deep state. They want blood. There's no group on earth more bloodthirsty than the QAnoners, constantly fantasizing about the death of this or that celebrity or politician.
You, under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight, you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
for?
he's going crazy. Except for day.
Except for day one. And you'll notice the people in the audience were like, yeah. Like their response wasn't a laugh, like it was a joke.
One.
Meaning?
I want to close the border and I want to drill.
That's
drill,
not that's
drill.
that's not
No, no.
that's not retribution.
I'm going to be.
Anyway, politics as usual, boring, recycled from 2015, 2016. They haven't really changed the script. Wasn't he going to build the wall? Weren't they chanting build the wall like 10 years ago? Continuing. Again, moving past the dead baby stuff, the dead fake babies, it's all part of illusion warfare. Like this again, for example, 2023 and inflatable decoys are still in use. So in addition to digital and just printed lies, they have access to all sorts of inflatable. This is from the U.S. Army's Black Horse Regiment. These are cardboard and inflatable. So what you're looking at here is a cardboard tank.
We can disguise how many fighters we actually have in a certain area, and not only can we confuse the enemy where they're at, right, it also helps protect those real assets that are hidden away somewhere else, right? Because now they think they've got it, they're no longer looking for them.
It must be quite a look on their face.
Now these are decoys, they're inflatable, and they do a really good job artistically here of painting reflections in the windows to make it look like you're looking inside of the thing. But again, this is all just inflatable. Inflatable tanks, inflatable missile launchers, and then we have hyper-realistic simulated casualties and bodies. Unbelievable. And this is standard practice and always has been. There are fake bases even.
Faces when they realise that their inflatable vehicles are not real ones.
I'm sure it is. I've never actually seen what the enemy sees, what the enemy looks like when they see that we've got inflatable vehicles out here. But however, what we usually do is when the shooting starts, those inflatable vehicles will probably get out of town before any infantry can actually see it, which allows us to keep the game.
Okay, this is again just more indication that things are far more fakeable than people would know. And I consider 2020 to be largely a decoy operation where instead of having inflatables, they just had empty tents everywhere. Claims that the hospitals were full, that they were so packed that there was no room in the ICUs, the hallways were packed, the morgues in the hospitals were packed. Hospitals were so full with patients that bodies were falling out the windows like 9/11 jumpers. And it's like you drive by and everything's empty. Like, well, what's true? What they're saying on the news or what's evident here in the streets? This is what prompted us to start passing out the IPR press passes. Like, you got to be essential. Your media. We got to fact check. We have to see if this aligns. And it did not. It did not align whatsoever. Major discrepancy. Hero Paranormals here says there was a shooting here in Vegas on the 666th day after the October 1st. No, it was 6 years and 66 days. That's how it... But anyway, yeah, because that was October 1st, 2017. 2 fake events. And then something else, there may be a Maui connection because, of course, the chief of police in Maui, who oversaw the Chinese space lasers roasting the school children, was overseeing the mass casualty event there on 10/1/17. Michael Letts on X says it's random that the hoax Las Vegas shooting from 10/1/17 occurred 6 years and 66 days prior to the hoax today. I don't need to see the fake details. The media promotes shootings that are fake. This was at the University of Las Vegas. So again, you can check here. Sunday, October 1st, 2017 to Wednesday, December 6th, 2023, 6 years and 66 days. Again, we're going to have to set up a PSYOP calendar here. NBA Tournament Final Four in Vegas, 12/7/2023, Sin City. It's symbolic. The largest mass shooting in all of history occurred on Vegas, 10/1/2017. 6 years and 66 days. Fascinating. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. This is not the first time that we've noticed such patterns. One of the more conspicuous ones, I think, was from Corona being declared as a pandemic, 3/11, to the was it the coronation of the king? It was like 911. These are just insanely accurate. Or from the first Q drop to the queen dying or dropping, it was 1776 days. Not exactly sure what it all means. I'm just saying it's very much indicative of news bending. You don't have to look at this as mystical, like, oh, this is an amazing coincidence. It's a synchronicity created by mass perception, or it's some kind of magic, dark occultists foreshadowing things. No, that's not really necessarily what it tells us. What it tells us is what we already know. That newsbenders, that play from 1968, accurately describes how the news works. And they do plan things in advance, long in advance. And I think it's much longer than what was posited in that show, 5 years. I think it's more like generational. Oswaldo says pattern recognition is something. Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday, how pattern recognition lets you see through the fake news. And they want you locked in the now. They don't want you to look back at the news as anything other than settled. Once it's in the past, it's carved in stone. You shouldn't question it. But pattern recognition, as best I can describe it, I use this idea of the worldview being a puzzle that they gave us. And when you're born, you grow up, you give them puzzle pieces. So here's a puzzle piece. You live on a ball, and dinosaurs used to exist. And so you grow up with dinosaurs, you see dinosaurs on TV, they're all over, you have dinosaur toys, dinosaur wallpaper and pajamas. And then you get to school and they say, oh, by the way, you know this globe that we're on? Well, the dinos were killed by a big rock from space. So they build your worldview early on. They tell you what the world is. They teach you about mass extinction, which is a major theme here. And then as you grow up, they give you more puzzle pieces. And then you graduate, and then you have a complete puzzle. But some have noticed that they have other pieces that don't quite fit. And these puzzle pieces are called conspiracy theories. And they try to burn those. But the thing is, the reason they don't have any place isn't because they're wrong or they don't belong, but because they've been excluded. And when you look closely at the puzzle, you see gaps because they forced a lot of the pieces in. And so what we're doing here is we're saying, well, we can't trust this model they've given us because they forced it into too many places here, logical fallacies to shoehorn things in. So we're just going to go ahead and pull apart large swaths of this puzzle and add in what we have. So we have an incomplete model, but at least we recognize that the world stage internalized concept of the world is in fact just a model. It's a selective interpretation, and it was selected for us. It was selected for the ideal massified mind. The massified programmable mind that technically has mind aids and just accepts whatever mind virus comes into the TV from the mediated environment. No filtration, because critical thinking is a crime. All right, let's go ahead and continue. So many interesting bits of patterning being picked up on by this channel. It's called, there's a few of them I would reference, but the one that I just cited was Michael in Truth, and that's on X. And he does a lot of this pattern recognition. It's not all necessarily predictive unless you start using it that way, and I think we might as well. And I've said this before, predictive programming is so consistent that you should be able to use it as a predictive model, which is how we called Seattle ground zero for the kickoff of World War III, which was true. It actually happened that way. And we called it solely based on Netflix. So when I say if you want to see the future, you just got to watch Netflix, or if you want to know what's on the news, watch Netflix, I'm not being hyperbolic. It's quite literally true. And it makes all the more sense when you see that the CEO and co-founder of Netflix is a blood relative of both Sigmund Freud and Edward Bernays. So there's mind control, mass mind control, understanding how we operate subconsciously and how to manipulate that. And it's right there in our faces. Looking at the screen here, this is from Amazing Astronomy. And again, if it looks fake, it must be real, whether it's a literal bouncing baby rubber doll or a supposed Tesla Roadster in space. This is from Amazing Astronomy. They said, "This looks so unrealistic, but this view of Earth and Moon is exactly real and captured by NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter." So here we have Amazing Astronomy admitting that this looks unreal. Yeah, technically it looks fake as fuck. Or unreal, but no, it looks so fake. And it's the fakest thing I've ever seen. Has anyone here seen anything faker? This is like the fakest thing that NASA has ever shown us. But supposedly it's from a lunar orbiter. Anyway, this obvious fakery, which looks even faker than 2001 Space Odyssey, someone said they don't have the technology to fake moon landings. Certainly not in 1968, 1969. I'm like, I don't know. Kubrick could have done it. And they haven't improved in the ensuing decades. I mean, their special effects have just gotten worse, honestly. Or maybe we've just become more discerning. Maybe we're more demanding, or perhaps we're too demanding as critics. My point of it is, they admit that it looks unrealistic. Wonder why that would be. Like, why can't it just look real? Like, have you ever taken a photo and then you look at the photograph and you're like, wow, that looks so fake? I haven't. Okay. Lieutenant Weinberg says, I was looking at the movie poster for Capricorn 1 from the late 70s, and the astronaut's reflection of a prop plane followed by two scary helicopters reminds me of that famous Office reflection. Now, Capricorn 1 is where they faked the moon landing, right? Wasn't O.J. Simpson in that one? I have to watch it. But the fakeability thing, there are some silly people out there there's some seriously triggered anti-flat earth types who will argue till they're blue in the face. They get mad, they get enraged, and they say it would have been easier to have built a rocket and flown to the moon than to have faked it. I don't know how they make that leap, because science fiction pre-exists everything that has become, quote, real in space. Everything really just comes out of a few science fiction authors. All right, continuing. We talked about Kyle Rittenhouse's book. I'll be getting that and reading it when it comes out. Okay, here we go. The Las Vegas gunman identified as a 67-year-old college professor whose job application at the university was denied. Okay, interesting. I'd like to know more about him. Let's get his name. So his job application was denied. We don't have any details yet. We'll find out what he was an instructor in. College professor. Fascinating. Something else I've noted as of late is that the political right has been targeted for a long time by the media as being radicalized by internet websites, for example, the echo chambers of discord. And if you look at all the last 5 or 10 shooters from the right wing, they've all been radicalized in discord. But then you had the guy shooting up the bank, and you had Audrey Hale, and these are leftists. And what I'm hearing from right-wingers like Jack Posobiec, Human Events, is that the left wing is being radicalized by echo chambers on Reddit, and they're becoming shooters, and that they're being radicalized by this leftist ideology to go, kill Christian America, etc. And I'm like, wait a minute here. Are we seeing agreement on the right now that these fringe internet sites that represent the ends of the political spectrum are now problematic and conducive to mass murders, that they're actually picking up mind viruses? And yeah, they're actually getting both sides to agree. Angst G says, Gremlin's working overtime tonight. Yeah, if we have any sort of interruptions, and again, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, I'm just assuming it's Gremlins, I will be sending out archives via ips.monster if you subscribe there, so you can go ahead and you'll get the full thing put together. I know the thing is broken up. We've got like 3 different tracks. Okay, One Eye Jack says they faked the Mars landing in Capricorn 1. Okay, now speaking of that, They faked the Mars landing. Donnie Darko, a movie that has predictive programming for 9/11 and COVID and Trump being the Antichrist, among other things. The father of Donnie Darko's director worked on the Mars project. He's a NASA guy. He worked on the Viking Mars rover. Or Mars, yeah. So the Mars rover, the Viking thing, his son made a movie that contained not only predictive programming for these different events in 9/11, but its promotional materials had to be changed because it all featured falling planes. Anyway, it came out on 1/19, interestingly. 1/19, 2001. Just pointing it out, it's kind of notice. You'll see it's like a small family. It's a small circle of people when you get down to it at the very top of this thing. Like we were talking about this yesterday with Mark Kelly. We're talking about Gabby Giffords and how it's like, wait a minute here. You got fake shooting, fake politics, fake space, all in one family. And here with the Viking thing, it's like, okay, the son of a guy who faked movies for NASA is now working in the entertainment industry and produces a movie that had predictive programming for a major league psyop just a few months away. Okay, let's continue. And anyway, Las Vegas Gunman, we'll find out more about him. So there's talk now from George Magazine, and George Magazine is put together by Donald Trump's former photographer, Gene Ho, who has his readers believing that he works for JFK Jr. Well, now the big thing is they're claiming that Donald Trump is going to have his head carved onto Mount Rushmore. And apparently, there's some property there that's going to be given to Trump to create a presidential library after his next term.
Okay, Donald Trump Jr. just posted on his Instagram, and he posted a picture of Mount Rushmore, and in this picture, he pointed to one side of it and says, hey, it starts to look like Donald Trump's hair is already there. So it sparked a lot of questions from people, but I will tell you what I know. Of course, I was Donald Trump's personal campaign photographer, and also I was Donald Trump Jr.'s photographer in 2020, and we went to South Dakota, took some pictures there. But here's the interesting thing about it, because this is what I know about all this stuff with Mount Rushmore. I talked to people personally that own private land right around Mount Rushmore, and they said that they would be willing to donate this land to Donald Trump for him to build his presidential library there in the future. Now, whether or not Donald Trump accepts that gift or not, and this is in the future, it's up to Donald Trump. But private land around there, privately owned land around Mount Rushmore, will be given or offered to Donald Trump to build his presidential library. Now, as far as Donald Trump one day being on top of Mount Rushmore, I think it's going to happen.
There you have it. Gene Ho from George News Online, who actually bought the trademarks for JFK Jr.'s magazine, is saying that they're going to put Trump's face on the side of it. And this guy ran for mayor somewhere in Florida. Major QAnoner, full-blown adrenochrome, child trafficking, Wayfair. There's nothing about the Q conspiracy that he did not embrace. He was full-blown JFK Jr. Anyway, if you're not familiar with him, he is George News and also George Jr., a QAnon-themed magazine targeting youth ages like 6 to 11, teaching proper patriotic roles for their future, to worship the Constitution, etc. Yeah, phones are open, and shout out to Harmon Walker. Appreciate the donation there. In fact, that's what finance. I just bought some credits. So for the next few days, we're going to have text alerts. So again, thank you. Appreciate that. And yeah, phones are open. We can talk about pretty much anything. I'm just kind of catching up on things. It's been 666 days since the Vegas shooting. There's another Vegas shooting. And then this. Alex Jones is going to be on Tucker Carlson, and they're going to talk about how he predicted 9/11.
We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners, Baltimore Sun, or if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, he's the boogeyman they need. We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
So here you have Alex Jones predicting 9/11. And Tucker Carlson is going to have him on specifically to talk about this. And that's going to be on Thursday. Tucker says, Alex Jones predicted 9/11 in detail on camera months before it happened. How did he do that? And why did the government decide to destroy him after he did? Full interview on Thursday. Something to look forward to. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller? Can you hear me okay? Okay, we'll give it a minute to connect. We have a slight delay.
Predicting 9/11. And
Okay, what's up, caller? Go ahead and mute your speaker.
going to have them on specifically. That's going to be on Thursday. Says,
Okay, I'm hearing myself, so if you want to mute your speaker really quick or call right back. Okay, yeah, just call right back. That's fine. Okay, we're waiting for the caller to call back. In the meantime, again, Thursday, which is actually tomorrow, we'll have that interview with Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones. Hey, what's up, caller?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me all right? Maybe I have to.
Hello?
Maybe I got to fix my phone settings. Perhaps when I reset the
Well,
computer.
like that. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you just fine. But you're clearly not hearing me, are you? Okay, so look, I'm gonna have to fix the phones. Maybe there's something in the settings. We'll have to deal with that later. But the caller wasn't able to hear me. If someone else wants to try it, go for it. But I'm suspecting maybe there's something on my end. Okay, moving on. Zin Vela says, I live by Rushmore. There's no way that's happening. Oh, you don't think they're going to put Trump's head on Mount Rushmore? Well, there was this scene when Trump went over there and gave a speech on July 4th. Was it 2020 or something? Where somebody stood on top of the head of George Washington, and the QAnoners believe it was JFK Jr. The JFK Jr., JFK stuff, the Q stuff, and Pizzagate stuff, it's all getting bumped quite heavily by Musk is actually a big part of it. All right, let's move on. Again, Alex Jones predicting 9/11, but did he? See, this is truther bait. This is also guardrailing. It's the controlled opposition, counter-narrative, safe conspiracy theory, because you think they're going to even touch on the area that it was staged and fake, or that there were dozens of drills going on that day, that there were 1,000 cops acting as casualties. Like, no, they're not going to touch any of that. And something else to consider, 9/11 was clearly directed largely by Kubrick, with input from James Cameron and Tom Clancy. But Kubrick's really the main one. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Alex Jones is friends with Kubrick's daughter. Because Kubrick didn't just, quote, fake the moon landing. They say, oh, Kubrick helped them because he was so good with the film. No, that wasn't the case. Kubrick's role has much more to do with the theater of Sci-War in general. It's not just limited to the Twin Towers. Thundernut6 says 9/11 was a construction job that started with a demolition. And if you break down the event, it has so many interesting facets, like Flight 77 hits the Pentagon 77 feet high. You had the crash in Shanksville, where they had box cutters like Shanks. You had the, Flight 93. Like, a lot of these numbers have specific connotations to the occult side of things as well. And then yesterday we were talking about the movie Mercury Rising, about an autistic child who's able to crack codes and he becomes a threat to national security. And what's interesting about that one is he's in the movie with Bruce Willis, who's associated with, buildings blowing up and stuff. But the actor in the movie Mercury Rising, his father died in the Twin Towers when the first plane hit at 8:46. So like, well, that's interesting. Because Mercury was rising on 9/11 at 8:46. So I'm just like, well, there's a interesting bit of coincidences here. Harmon Walker says, I could not hear you. It was static. I just resigned. You re-signed up for an annual membership. Long live the IPS. Hey, appreciate that very much. we are about to enter a very, very active phase. And this is going to be taking the IPS think tank, which is not street legal, but it's roadworthy. And we're taking it out for a ride, basically, as part of an Autohoaxology 101 book tour. Now, the book tour, which I'm about to commence, is going to be a combination of basically a cyber symposium slash discussion and debate on very specific topics, but our approach is all essentially outlined in the methodology described in Autohoaxology 101. And along with each of these, it's going to have a corresponding tabloid issue for the IPS Insider. And I have a number of writers sending me articles already. So if you want to write for it, if you have any articles, you have memes, even if you just have a blog or a podcast you want to promote, what we're doing is we're building a network because we're creating a fracture, a schism, a breakaway, an exodus in a sense, because the off-world stage perspective, if enough of us get on this right away, it'll be unstoppable. And you'll notice that the media will probably ignore it for as long as possible. But this is something that I think they're not ready to confront. Like, they were blindsided by the wave of NASA skeptics. They're supposed to just laugh at them because they underestimate them. They call them mentally deficient, Dunning-Kruger. They impugn their intellects. Well, that's just ad hominem. It doesn't reflect the reality. The people who are looking at these questions aren't necessarily people who are, high dropouts or uneducated. Actually, it comes from a place of curiosity, which the people who believe the settled science seem to lack. In fact, they seem to be offended by curiosity, by question marks in general. Diana Southard says, was his father a suicidal rubber mannequin? Or yeah, right. Actually, the 9/11 jumpers, in my opinion, they were made out of fire hose. I've seen these fire hose, like the fire departments when they train. They fold up these fire hoses into people, so they're heavy and they flop over like people. So they could have used those and pneumatic cannons to fire them out. Although they could have just used dummies as well. I've actually have experience with those when I was training as a 92 Mike in Fort Lee, Virginia, and that's mortuary affairs. There's an entire warehouse full of life-size, hyper-realistic, heavy bodies to train with. So we were doing mass casualty drills, and that's a standard part of training these days. And the dummies have just become increasingly realistic. So the 9/11 jumpers were likely, whatever they were mannequins blasted with pneumatic cannons. Nicholas Pitts says, there's a new Q site that has popped up that has had a series of timers that have led to nothing except another timer. You can see it at qofficial.net. Yeah, I think they're being trolled. They're being trolled like crazy. And then Musk isn't helping because he's posting things. Like, he posted MK Ultra at like 4:38 p.m. and they're like, oh look, Q drop 4:38 says MK Ultra. So the QAnoners, in fact, I have that actual Q drop. What they do is they have their own Qbala and their own little, gematria, common core gematria, which they use to read meaning into the tweets of people like Donald Trump, Dan Scavino, and now Elon Musk. So he tweeted MK Ultra at 4:38 p.m. So if you go to Q drop number 1638, so it's not number 438, it's 1638 military time. So 438 probably has no relationship to 438. So they went to 1638. You see how they go? It's like, oh look, I'm trying to add up my enemy's name to 666, but it doesn't add up. So let me use the Chaldean calculator instead of English ordinal. And they go through their gematria calculators, through their drawer, until they find the one that gives them the answer they want. So here's an article. The CIA tried mind control to create the perfect assassin. The CIA experimented extensively with brainwashing, codenamed MK Ultra, involved 149 separate experiments. So the Q drop number 1638 says, think born. think Bourne, covert ops. So I guess Bourne means Jason Bourne, who is a CIA MK Ultra mind-controlled assassin. Q drop 1638 and Musk tweeting at 438. Does any of this make sense to anybody, or does it feel like that meme where the guy is looking at a bulletin board covered in string connecting different index cards, like he's explaining how Elvis and Pepe and the deep state all make sense? Like, this is insane. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a skeptic. These individuals are running amok with their cognitive bias, and they're just going to automatically find something. Any time of day that you tweet something, there's probably a Q drop that relates to it. It's not falsifiable. The Q droppery, this Q drop analysis, it's insane. It's like reading the entrails of a bull to tell the future. Like, this is some kind of divination. They're reading Q droppings, sifting through Q droppings, divining the future, like it's some kind of oracle. All right, moving on. Barth Northeast says, "Evening, chaps. Thank you for joining." Yeah, and if you want to call back, I'll turn the phones back on. I turned them off and on. I'm assuming the static was probably on your end. I think we fixed it. Okay, we talked about the inflatable rocket launchers. Okay, here's an interesting one. Someone mentioned the first Hollywood sex scandal, and this was the trial of Fatty Arbuckle. Now, if you watched Babylon, starring Margot Robbie, who later became Barbie, basically the whore of Babylon, Babylon is based on Hollywood Babylon, a book written by the Satanist Thelemite filmmaker Kenneth Anger,